Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of our series on this DTS. What are we going to be doing in this episode, Ed?
In this episode, we're basically going to be doing engine teardown. So we're going to be pulling off the power steering pump, the alternator, the air conditioning compressor. Then we're going to be basically removing the engine from the cradle by disconnecting it from the transmission, and then we're going to get it up on the engine stand so that we can continue working on it in the next episode.
That's right. Enjoy.
Alright, well, it's out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start undressing the engine. It basically means taking off all the ancillaries to be able to allow us to separate the motor from the gearbox here. So yeah, we're going to start with a couple of things, and we'll continue around and show you all the steps in order to be able to get it ready to separate it from the gearbox. Alright, what we're first going to do here is we're going to take this. This is a air injection solenoid valve here. I guess it's not really a solenoid, it's a vacuum actuated air injection valve. So it's connected to the exhaust manifold here with two 10mm bolts, and it's clipped to the side of the water pump casing with this bolt here and this bolt right down here. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen all of them and then take it off. One thing to note, be very, very careful with this little vacuum hose that trails off the back here. If you mess that up for some reason, I don't want to think about it. So we're just going to wriggle this slowly back and forth, pull it off. There we go. Now I'm going to disconnect these. Make sure you replace this gasket when you're done. Those are off. Alright, now this is held in here by this bracket. It's a bracket that sits over the water pump housing bolts here. So we'll take that one out of there. We'll take this one out of here. Looks like we're missing a bolt up there. Oops. Must have rattled out. Okay, so now this should, like, all these are loose. Now this should allow us to just remove this whole piece and set it aside. So we're just gonna pull it off, and there you go. Alright, so the next step, we have a heater pipe here, and then we have a heater pipe here. So we're gonna loosen this 13mm bolt underneath this that holds this bracket to the, this is actually, if you'll recognize it from earlier, this is the shift cable mounting point. So I'm just gonna take this off. And there should be enough flex in the hose that we can just get it out of the way. Next one is here, and that holds this. Loosen that guy. Okay, take that off. Now this one, as you can see, it's not moving. So I think what we may actually have to do is press these two plastic clips in here. Alright, so this is one of these, this is a, GM is famous for these. They use, this is a quick disconnect for the heater hoses. You'll find these on like the LS engines, the even the old Vortex series. My 94 Chevy C1500 has one of these in it. And it is just a little plastic, two plastic covers here that you squeeze together, and you're able to pop this guy out. See how it works here. It's a little squeeze plug. You just squeeze this and then pop it out. You may have to wriggle it back and forth a few times because the rubber is probably shot. So what you end up doing is you put a big socket on this or a wrench, and you take this out, you back it out, put some pipe thread. We'll show it in a later video, but you put some pipe sealer on there and put it back in. And then you can recycle this piece. Now we're going to remove bank 2's air injection valve here. So we actually have a whole bunch of things we have to disconnect. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to come down here and remove this hose clamp so that we can loosen this whole thing. So just get your hose clamp pliers or whatever pliers you got. Now we're going to disconnect the bracket that holds this tube in place. This is a 10mm. deep socket. So I'm just gonna loosen this guy up. So we're going to loosen up these two right here. These are also 10 millimeter. Take them off. If anybody's ever changed their own spark plugs on one of these before, you'll be intimately familiar with laying over top of this engine and reaching down here with an extension to disconnect this. Because you have to remove this in order to get to the coil cassette right here. Okay, now, there are 5 bolts that hold this in place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the little vacuum hose. Now, before we do anything, we're going to try and get this little vacuum hose off of here. Okay, there it is. Now, here's a 10 millimeter nut back here. Now, we're going to take this off. This here. And this one here. This oxygen sensor connector here, it has a safety pin. So that has to get pulled out of the way. You can pull this up. And you pop this guy down. Now, the only problem we have here is that we have to get this off of here because otherwise it's just going to get stuck there. Because this has got a one-way fastener on it, there's a little tiny clip right here that you can open up with a screwdriver and then just slide this off. You just kind of stick your screwdriver in here, pop it right off. That's out of the way. All right, now we can take this guy and sort of gingerly get him out of the way. Move ourselves through there, and there you have it. Now, what we're going to be doing is removing the entire wiring harness from the top of the car and just kind of laying it back over there. We have to start basically down here and start unclipping things. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and unclip this. Okay, this is out of the way. Now, in here, right here, if you can see it, this is the output speed sensor. This basically tells your computer how fast you're going. So you just kind of pop this off the 2-wire connector. You'll notice it's magnetic because your screwdriver will stick to it. This is broken. As you can see, somebody probably at the dealership tied this up. So I'm just going to cut that. Okay, next thing, here is a cam shaft position sensor. So we need to take this off very carefully. Pop that out. Alright. And we'll slowly work our way this way over the engine. And then we'll also have to take some of the harness off on this side as well. The next stop on our tour is this. This is our starter motor solenoid connector. So that's just pull it up, pop it out. Alright, good. Next one over, coil cassette power and communication with the computer. So you just, again, squeeze, pull it off. I'm going to take this little solenoid one off as well. So you squeeze down on this tab and the grippers allow you to just kind of get it off. Okay, this is a little vacuum valve. Now, what we need to do, there are 4 injectors here. We have to get in here to release those so that we can pop this wiring harness up higher. What we have here is a little gray plastic safety to keep these from popping off. So you want to just kind of get your screwdriver underneath this very gingerly and then pull this back. Once the safety's gone, you just push the center of this and it pops right out. You can see it's a little rocker. When you push down on this, it opens it. Alright, so we've gotten all of our injectors loose here. All this is good. Our vacuum lines here are out of the way. And what we want to do now is just kind of wriggle this vent tube up and out of the way so we can get the rest of this line and throw it over here. So I'll just do one of these. Luckily it's not too bad, so then we can basically just take this very gently. Okay. Alright, now a couple more things we have to disconnect. Okay, just for safety's sake, I'm going to take, so we don't, end up dropping this computer for some reason. I'm going to take the connectors off of here. This is a 7mm little bolts. And you can just loosen this up until it stops. Because they are captive, they don't come out. That's off of there. Okay, this little seal has to go with this. That's one. Put this up. Okay, that should be good. Alright, I'm going to take this off. Again, we're going to make sure we rescue our seal. Next two connectors that we have to disconnect. This is the EGR valve. So we want to pull this one off. Just get it behind this little blade connector. Pop that one out. Right here is your evaporative purge canister solenoid. Okay, that one's off. And you can see our wiring harness is pretty loose. Next step is we're going to take this cassette connector off here. So what we're going to do is just remove this guy from under this stud. This is a wiring harness. I already pulled the cable for the ignition coil cassette here. And then I'm going to do each one of these injectors. So there we go. There's this stuff. This off. One, two, three. Out of the way. Now, should be able to just take this whole wiring harness, very good connected. So that's nicely out of the way. So next step, we have a different harness that comes up from here, you can see. So we have our throttle position sensor, our idle air control valve, and our MAF sensor right here. So we're going to disconnect these. So that's three of them. They're very simple. You just gently pry up on them. Take them out. Now, if your car's been experiencing like a rough idle, or stalling at idle, or anything else like that, most likely culprit is this guy here, the idle air control valve. The spindle is supposed to ratchet in and out to let air bleed by the throttle butterfly here. And this guy basically wears out over time. We replaced this one fairly recently. I think this was maybe 2 years ago or so, so he should be fine, but we may actually still just take it out and clean everything out of there once we remove the intake manifold. The last thing I'm going to do is just remove this one little vacuum hose here, and then I can take this whole harness and get it out of here so we don't have any issues with it breaking or getting caught or anything like that. So I'm just going to gently pry him off. Okay, and we'll get him out of the way. I'm also going to do this one too, just so it's out of the way and we don't, don't worry about it getting broken. As you can see, this is a mess, but what we need to do next is, while we're on the subject of wiring harnesses, we're going to disconnect all of these connectors through here so that we can then withdraw this harness out of the way, or just kind of let it hang depending on what we want to do here when we actually lift the motor up and out of here. So first step, what we want to do, actually I need a little screwdriver. Okay, so we're going to take the field wires off the alternator here, then we're going to disconnect the air conditioning compressor electrical connector. Alright, now there's something that goes under here. Well, I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but right here is a, this is the oil level sensor. And there's a two-prong weather pack electrical connector that plugs deep inside of this. So in order to get it out, you need a very skinny screwdriver, and you have to get behind both the things, pry up, and then pull back, and it comes out. And you can see it here. It's a small little connector, but it's set deep inside of that piece, so it's a little bit hard to get out. So then we can just thread that back this way, and here we go. There's two crankshaft position sensors in here. You can see this one through the hole, maybe. I'm not sure where you can see it from, but what I did was I put my screwdriver down in through here and pushed down the tab, and then that allows me to pop it right off. There's another one right below it, but it's in the reverse direction, so I gotta probably go from underneath and push up on it, unless I can squeeze it with my hand. We finally released the oil pressure sensor connector. We had to actually rotate the sensor a bit because it was just in an awkward position using this 27mm wrench. So the next step is we're going to disconnect this oxygen sensor connector here. It's the same procedure as the other side. You pull this, ooh, that just disintegrated, but this is the safety. And then this one probably is going to be a bit, I would be very careful with this connector because this, like, as you can see, is right next to the exhaust manifold. So it's probably pretty crispy. I also went and unhooked this clamp. I think that we're probably okay to just leave this harness where it is when we take the engine out. We're going to have to undo these two bolts down here. But other than that, everything's free, so we're not going to hang up on anything when we take this out. So next step in the factory service manual is to disconnect these power steering hoses. So this guy is supposed to be clipped to that. I don't know what happened. Whoever replaced the power pressure line probably couldn't get to it, is what I'm guessing. It was just too much of a pain in the ass. But there is a 15mm bolt here that holds the return line. We have to disconnect this clamp, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to suck all the fluid out of the reservoir here, so we don't make a giant mess. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so next step here is we're going to take this 15mm bolt out here that holds this return line in. So it's just very simple. So we're going to take this guy out. We're going to set him aside. We're going to loosen up this clamp here. Alright, so before I yank this hose off and we spill oil all over the belt, I'm going to take my handy dandy breaker bar, and this is just a 1/2 inch drive square. I'm going to pull down on this guy, and we're going to take the belt off. Alright, so I'm going to yank this hose off. Hopefully we got enough fluid out of this so we're not going to have a problem, but gently. Okay, yeah, so we should be good. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to disconnect this power steering pressure line. I would normally take a 10mm bolt off of here that holds this on, but well, it's not there anymore. So anyway, I'm just going to hopefully just crack this guy loose, and it's not going to be a smuggler. What we want to do then is basically put a plug in here so that we don't get any debris in there while we're doing this. Unfortunately, the only way to take a power steering pump off of a Northstar car is to pull this pulley off first. and then remove it. Alright, so next up, we're gonna pull the power steering pump off of here. Unfortunately, in order to remove the power steering pump, like I mentioned earlier on Northstar cars, you have to pull the pulley off because the bolts are behind here, and they didn't think it was a great idea to maybe put holes in the pulley or something so you could take the bolts out. We gotta take the whole damn pulley off. So now, I'm just gonna pop this little... get yourself a nice power steering pulley puller set. Don't buy the Harbor Freight one, it's terrible.
Please don't sue us, Harbor Freight.
Alright, so we've got the thing set up here. As you can see, there's two halves to this, and this is what, you know, keeps them together. And you're going to be tightening up on this. Actually, I can just tighten down on this guy to basically pull the thing out. And it'll just slowly inch this thing off. So it doesn't break. Alright, here it comes. Okay, where is this? So this is the adapter I used. I greased up the end of it here, so the end of the shaft is greased, and I just clamped this around that pulley, and it pulls it right off. What I found, and you can see the damage from previous, somebody tried to do it, is that the Harbor Freight version of this, the metal is not strong enough, and it just breaks, so don't use it. So now we're going to take the whole power steering pump out. Either just, all it holds it in is two 13mm bolts, that's it. Boom. Now we just gotta lever this thing out of here, which tends to be a bitch. It's basically just squeezed in place by the bracket here. So you kind of have to. There it is. So now we're gonna take the power steering pump bracket off. Okay. Okay, so that was pretty simple. There it is. Like I said, there's a nice little angled piece that fits into the slot down here, and that's how they saved on, you know, one bolt. Alright, so next up is this engine mount here, engine trans mount sort of thing, needs to come off. We've got two bolts here that hold it to the engine, and then there's two bolts on the side that hold it to the transmission. So we're just going to go ahead and loosen these. This is not the right direction. Okay, so we got two bolts here, both 15mm. I'm gonna try and get it on with my wrench here. Actually, they're not super tight, so that's good. That one's a lot tighter. Let's get this one out of here. Okay, so we're getting to the point where we're going to be disconnecting most of the brackets that hold the motor to the transmission. What we're going to do is actually remove a bunch of these accessories to lighten it up a bit and just get them out of the way, because we got to take them off anyway. We might as well do it while it's on the ground and stable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first start with the belt tensioner here. These are all 15mm. Next one is the idler pulley, also 15mm. This has a couple of pieces with it, you can see. Alright, now, I think what we're going to do is take the alternator off. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the positive battery cable off of the alternator. Loosen this. This is 10 millimeter. Take it off. Put this stud back on there. Okay, so that's out of the way. Now, there is a bolt here, and there's a bolt here. We got to take this one out, and we got to take that one out. So. Something. I think it is. I think it's just stuck. Oh. Ha! Idiot. Okay. There we go. This disgusting alternator is about to come out. There it is. All right, now we're once we got the alternator out of the way, because as you can see, it shares a horn here on the air conditioning compressor. We're gonna go ahead and remove this lump. There's a 3/15 and there's a 13 millimeter back around here. So I'm gonna loosen that 13 millimeter first. What we did, as you can see, we before we did anything here, we plugged the ends here just to keep any dirt and debris from getting inside the compressor. Oh, there it is. Ah. Alright, so we're going to pull this bolt off here. Oh, it's not nearly as bad. Okay, next one is this bolt here. There we are. I'm going to take this thing out of here now. Okay. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, just so it's easier for us to hold the engine in place, because I don't have the special tool to lock the crankshaft via the flex plate in the back, we're going to take this bolt here out. This is a 19 millimeter, and then we're going to use a jaw puller on here to pull this harmonic balancer off. But first, we're going to mark it so we know exactly where it went on the crank. Because this is pressed on, it's not keyed. There's no way to know once you've gotten it off where it was. I'm going to use my impact gun here on low, and we're just going to loosen this. I don't expect this to be very tight, but we'll see what happens. Woo! Okay, so now we're pulling off the harmonic balancer. What we did was we paint markered in a set of marks on the harmonic balancer and the crankshaft. We have this puller tool here. It's a 3-jaw puller. The actual harmonic balancer has 3 flat spots on it that you use to hook in with the jaws of the puller. I have this, the one I have here has the crank flat piece. So you lubricate here, and you lubricate the threads, which I'm going to actually put a little bit more on these before I do anything. This is like a high strength lubricant. And as you tighten this, it will pull the harmonic balancer off the engine. But we have to hold the engine from turning. That's the key. Yep. Perfect. Come off. Okay. So, as you can see, the jaws went slack. I'm going to pull this out. Now, I'm just going to be able to wriggle this right off the crank, as you can see. So you can see our marks, 1, 2, 3, and the marks on the crankshaft, 1, 2, 3. Alright, so next step is we're going to take this bracket off here. This is a brace between the trans axle here and the cylinder head here. These are 15 millimeters. There's 2 nuts here and a bolt there. We're not sure if we're going to have to remove this heat shield yet. We might have to because it looks like this bolt's going to hit this, but who knows? It might not. So we're going to try it anyway. Yeah, here we go. Alright, so we basically decided that this is pointless to back this bolt out without removing this heat shield. So these are two 10 millimeter bolts, and this is the heat shield for the steering rack. Okay, so I'm just going to set this out of here. This is a bit harder to move than I was hoping. That was fairly rusty. Let's see it. So we take that bracket out. So our next bracket that we have to remove is this guy. You can see it's another transmission bracket because there's actually quite a bit of weight hanging out here over the engine. So again, just 15 millimeter bolts. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen these up and then whiz them out. Okay, so our next step is this is the speed sensor heat shield. So we're going to take these 2 bolts off to get this off, and then underneath that is another set of bolts for this another engine bracket in here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 behind that. This is actually a spacer. So all right, we're going to take these off. Be careful of the speed sensor. Alright, so just about to remove the motor. No, sorry, separate the motor from the gearbox. And we basically have to, in order to get at the bolts, there's 4 of them that hold the 2 things together now. In order to get to them, we have to get all the wiring out of the way. There's no way else to do it. So we're going to work on just getting rid of all this harness and putting it somewhere else safe. First step is we're going to disconnect this ground cable right here. Then we're just going to slowly work our way, pulling all the stuff that way. We're going to take this ground wire off here. Be very careful. We've got our wiring harness piled out of the way here. Now, the last 4 things holding this engine to the good old Hydromatic 4T80E here, or 4 18mm M12 175 bolts that are here, 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 and here. And we'll show them in a second as we go around, but I'm going to loosen up this one. I may have to get another extension. Go. Alright, so the next bolt is down in here, right under this water pump crossover. And they gave you a nice little slot right there from the in the trans case. So you can get in here, lay your extension on it. Okay. There's the next one. So this one. Last and final one. Oh, that's actually a smaller bolt. Okay. That looks like a 15mm. There we go. Alright, so we have all of our bell housing bolts loose. It's supported by the good old engine crane here. The only thing really holding it in still is the dowel pins that connect it to the transmission. So what we're going to do is we're going to lift this up just a little bit and then try and wriggle it free from the trans. We may run into some resistance from this front engine mount here. I'm not quite sure yet, but if all else fails, we'll loosen the bolts here on this engine mount and then we'll get rid of it. So that's what we're going to do. We're about to mount up the Northstar here to our engine, trusty heavy duty engine stand here, so we'll see how this goes. Like I said before, the bolt size for these bell housing bolts is M12 175, and we got a couple of bolts around here that are a little bit longer than the factory bolts, so we can hopefully you know, and some washers, etc., and hopefully mount this whole thing up and not have a problem. See it falling off here. Fuel injection bracket. Fuel rail bracket. So we have to just drop the thing off. This is the exhaust gas for circulation valve line. And the crossover pipe here. We'll take this out. Well, I guess maybe if I loosen the bolts, it'll just do all those things. This off. That should be it. Pull the bolts out. Now we're just gonna wiggle this thing off of here. Oh, what the hell is that? Dipstick tube. Move the thing over there. Alright guys, so that's it for this episode. On the next episode we're going to be cleaning up the old Northstar because it is just super grody from all the oil leaks. And then we're going to be finishing up that episode with basically a full disassembly of the engine.
That's right. Do what you feel, keep both feet on the wheel. You don't have to go home, but you can definitely watch our next episode, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching.